Hi, my name is Jason Banks, and this is my introductory video for AEP855. A little bit about myself is that I currently live in Manhattan, Kansas. I'm married to Nadine, and we have two elementary-aged daughters. First one is Evie. She's in fourth grade, and Laurel is in first grade. I teach. I'm in my 14th year at Fort Riley Middle School. This is my third year teaching eighth grade, and I spent the previous years teaching seventh grade English language arts. I am currently working on my master's in instructional technology. I have this class and another, and then my practicum, and then hopefully we'll be graduating in the spring. When thinking about chapter one, we first wanted to know why politics influence school. And politics influence school because major political events often arise in school. Civil rights, students with disabilities, religious freedoms. Politics also arrive in school in the shape of funding, right? The requirements that get attached to the money that the federal government attaches to it, like No Child Left Behind from days gone by, where expectations were put in place, and if those expectations weren't met, then funding became an issue. But the top is not the only place where these issues come from. They do come from the state and local level. State standards play a part. The local school boards play a part, and there's politics involved in that as well. So the question, why should we split work and skills from knowledge and wisdom, is because schools are going to require leaders who act, right? The standards are based on research. This addition of the action verbs, it changes the focus to where it's no longer acceptable to just know the standards. A school leader has to be empowered to act upon them, right? So why the shift to an explicit call to action? Well, earlier education, politics, was seen as something that was done to education, right? Educators were told which party to vote for, which candidates to vote for, shoot, even which churches to go to. And as education progressed, there was this shift to become a more apolitical institution, right? They moved in that direction. And education was expected to be above party politics. It's supposed to be a bastion of professionalism where politics didn't come into play. Modern education leaders, though, have realized that there is intense pressure on schools, and those pressures come from multiple directions. So why must school leaders become political activists? Well, there's a great deal of political conflict centered around what to teach, who will teach it, who will have access to that material. These pressures come from local, as we said before, local, state, and federal governments, as well as many other stakeholders in student education, parents, and the students themselves. So in the legal sense, there's the 10th Amendment, which removed the federal government's authority over education. It essentially created this complex system of special districts that are financially independent. And with this independence, the political conflict is clear. The federal and state governments have the power of the purse strings, so they can make politics can enter into it that way, as well as it's clear that politics is playing a part when we look at the legal cases that attempt to define the rights of each of these entities. So how should school leaders handle it all? Well, political pressures are going to come from all areas, and they're going to struggle with implementing teaching policies that come from exterior forces. There's going to be that conflict. So there's also the need to meet the needs of the various stakeholders, the students, the adults, those government agencies. So school leaders are going to have to perform a delicate balancing act, but that can't and shouldn't be performed alone. School leaders effectively, if they're going to do their job effectively, have to engage all those stakeholders so that the student needs of all the students can be met. Personally, my critique of my own knowledge is I had initially avoided politics. I saw it as politics and education as mostly just a building or a district issue, because that seemed to be what affected me the most. If you, things happened at the state, sometimes I saw them, sometimes I didn't. But I certainly didn't see politics as something that could work from one direction to the other. I only saw it as working from the top down. I never really saw it being able to work from the bottom to the top, where we could have use politics to influence meeting students' needs. So what am I going to do differently? I'm going to recalibrate my understanding of the purpose of politics and education, right? I'm going to see politics as a way to accomplish goals. And I'm going to use this idea to empower those around me to elevate their practice so that we can use these effective policies to make everybody better. So That's my presentation for AEP855, and I look forward to working with all of you this year.